Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Kobold Chats. My name is Kendrick or Kendo, whichever you prefer. I use any all pronouns, and it's Friday again. And you might notice that I'm in a completely different space than I normally am, and that's because I'm currently moving around right now. As we gotta take cats out to places, gotta see my partner's parents. You don't hear me, you do hear the music. That's wonderful. I mean, well, that might have been a thing that you said before I unmuted myself, so make sure you can hear me now. But yeah, hello everybody. What was I saying? Thank you. Hey Zach. What was I saying? Yes, it's Friday, the last day of our work week. We're in the middle of our day. Maybe you're out at lunch, maybe you're hanging out at home, doing whatever you're doing. I'm glad that you could be here with us, talking about my favorite thing, Kobold Press. And I'm not the only person talking today. Today, I'll also have a guest, a very special guest, not just for this chat here, but also for Monster Vault 2, which is the thing we are talking about today, because the Kickstarter is still well and on its way. There are 20 days left in it, and we've soared past our goal. That $75,000 goal, we got there the first day. Now we are inching ever closer to hitting that $200,000 mark, which would hold on. This might be a there we go. I figured out the issue. It was a different mic. Sorry, I moved my computer around because, again, I'm in a different place. So I'm sorry about that. What was I saying? Okay, to catch all of you up. Hey, I'm glad that you're here. It's the last day of our week, the middle of our day. I hope you're doing good. Monster Vault 2 is well on its way. We are inching ever closer to $200,000, which would put us even closer to the next stretch goal in the campaign. We have already gotten past the $100,000 mark, getting us the encounter builder update, which will include all of the monsters from Monster Vault 2 in our online encounter builder. We passed that 133,000 mark, which got us the field guide to monster harvesting PDF, which is going to give us all that good monster hunter, chop up monsters, make them into parts, pieces, then into weapons and potions that, we all know and love. And then the last stretch goal we hit was the 166,000, which got us our special guest designer, who we're talking to today, Galena, to design a monster for us. So I've been doing a lot of hyping up and all that good stuff. How about we just bring them on over? Hey Jesse, how's it going?
Hey, it is going quite well. How's it going for you?
It's going all right. I'm doing pretty good. Especially because I get to talk to you.
Wow, thanks.
Yeah.
I'm glad I get to talk to you too. And hey, everybody in chat, good to see you.
Yeah. For all of the people who don't know who you are, let them know who you are.
Oh, cool. I'm Jesse Galena. I am a media producer at Second Wind. We do a lot of video game and media coverage, and we're an employee-owned company, which is great because we all have a stake in it, and it's nice to be each other's bosses. It's really fun. And specifically, one of the things that we do is our tabletop RPG show that is a mix of actual play and animated show called Adventure is Nigh, in which I play Grinderbin, the Dikaria, which is a mushroom folk. And we've got 3 seasons out on our website or on our YouTube, which is Second Wind Group. And then season 4 starts in February.
Ooh,
so
that's
I've also
weeks away.
Yes, it's very close. I was doing animations for it like last week, so it's like it's really fun. I'm also one of the animators on it. And then I have been playing tabletop RPGs since like freshman year of college, I think, maybe sophomore. So I started a lot later than most people I met who was like, oh yeah, my parents got me into it or whatever. My parents were into the Satanic Panic, so I didn't play those games. And then someone introduced me to one, and I have been hooked ever since. It is like my favorite genre of games, period. I love video games. I love board games, but like tabletop RPGs are, I think, one of the most amazing things that as humanity we have created as art.
Yeah, yeah. No, I agree. Give me 1 second. I'm doing a little bit of troubleshooting here over
Oh,
on the
sure.
Discord side. Sorry for everyone who is having a hard time hearing. I don't know if you could hear the music. There's no reason why you shouldn't be able to hear Jesse as well.
Uh-oh.
Jesse is being monitored and outputted. See, we love tech stuff. I love
Oh, yeah.
leaving. I love leaving from one place, setting up it in a different place, and then I try to make it work again, and then it's like, oh, it doesn't work. Okay, I figured out the issue. Hey,
I don't
Jesse,
even go to new places and that happens. I do me and two other people at Second Wind do a Monday night stream called Hot Monday Energy, and we play games, and like technical difficulties is on the bingo card of like what's gonna happen today.
it's
Like
just gotta happen.
yeah.
It's just gotta happen. Technical difficulties are the bread and butter of every production, and sadly, these things, what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
Really wish.
Oh, I remember one more thing I have to plug that I forgot about. Can
Go
I
for
do
it.
that?
Yeah, go for it.
Thursdays at 4:30 Eastern time, I host RPG Help Desk, which is a live stream over on Second Wind Twitch, which is Second Wind Group on Twitch, and just going over answering questions. Usually have a topic, but usually enough questions come in that I never actually get to it because someone else is like, "But what about this?" And I'm like, "What a great idea!" And then I just go off on that. Um, So I'll be doing that except next week because I'll be at MagFest and I'll be doing RPG Help Desk live at MagFest on a panel, which is really cool.
Hey, there. That's awesome. I Magfest is a thing that I've always wanted to go to. It sounds great.
Oh, it is. I don't know if that pun was intended because, music, but like it is a great con. I really do enjoy MagFest.
Mm-hmm. Hey,
It'll be my first time doing a panel there, but like my sixth time going there. So
that's so cool. Maybe one day I will go. And guess what? Hey, I fixed it. I realized the issue. Sorry, everybody. That's on me.
Yay!
Okay. Jesse,
Yeah.
hello. Could you do a
Hey.
brief introduction for yourself for everyone on Discord?
Oh,
You can
sure.
speed run it if you want because they can now hear you.
Okay, I'm Jesse Galena. I've been playing tabletop RPGs since sophomore year in college and have made several of my own because I just hyper focus like that. I play Grinderbin on Adventures Nigh, which is our animated / actual play tabletop RPG show on Second Wind. And I play a mushroom folk named Grinderbin. And you can see that on Second Wind Group over on YouTube because that's our channel. And I work for Second Wind. I am it's employee owned, so I'm an owner person. But I do a lot of media production because we focus on a lot of video game stuff. Do a lot of streams, coverage, different premium shows, like Fully Ramblematic and Backdrop and Design Delve and some other live stream and podcasts like Firelink and DevHeads. So we do a lot, possibly too much.
Possibly too much. Is there ever enough?
For us, no, because we're just a bunch of creatives that broke away from corporate and we're like, we could do this, and
No,
then
you
through
could
the
do your
help
own
of the
thing.
community, made it possible because we're Patreon funded through the majority of it. So it's like the people that came with us to support us are what keep us going, and yeah, it's like we just want to keep doing more and more and more, and there is a thing called time, which is a big bummer.
Whoa, what? What's
Yeah.
time?
Because we want to be like, well, let's just make another show and let's animate it, or let's do this. And that's like, but who's going to stop doing what they're doing on their already busy schedule to do this?
I know it too well. I know that problem too well. Well, yeah, Jesse, as I said before, earlier in this, and also in our pre-tech thing, I'm super excited to talk to you, because you got to do a thing that I love doing. I guess I also technically got to do it. You designed a monster,
Yes.
for the Monster Vault 2, which is I'm so glad we were able to hit that stretch goal and be able to like have it in here. Before we get to your monster, we're gonna bury that one a little bit. We're gonna get to the monster, but first I want to know more about you and your experience with tabletop games and either GMing or designing monsters or what have you? How did you get into it?
In college, I visited a friend who had like one of my best friends through high school. He went off to a different college, and I went and visited him. And when I was there for like a week, and he was like, "Hey, I play this game every week." And I was like, "Oh, what kind of game?" And he's like, "Oh, it's a pen and paper." And he like was explaining it, and I was like, "Cool, what does it look like?" He's like, "Well, it's like in your mind." And it's like it was such a weird concept to me. Like I had no experience in that.
Yeah.
And so I went and I was like, "Yeah, sure. I love video games. I'll go play this weird not video game, not board game. Okay." And so I went, and the DM was like, "Oh, if you ever played a game?" I was like, "No." He's like, "Here, this is an NPC that was like connected to one of the players that he was playing." He's like, "Just play this. You don't really need to worry about stats. Just kind of, role play." And I wasn't really sure what that was, but I was like, "Okay."
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I just got to goof around and do like basically make believe when you're a kid, but with some rules to make it fair for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it was the coolest freaking thing I'd ever done. And we played till like 6 in the morning. Like we just played all through the night. It was incredible, and it left a lasting impact on me. And
I
I was immediately like, this is the thing I want to do. This is amazing. When I got back home, I found some friends that were into it and got to play with them. And yeah, I played games, I ran games, I started making games because I don't like reading someone else's work is sometimes hard for me as like a rule book. So I was
mm-hmm.
like, well, I'll just make my own. And like, I don't recommend that. I don't recommend the first game that you run as the DM to be one that you also created. It technically worked. It was a fun game. It lasted like 2 years as a campaign, but
That sounds successful to me.
yes, but I feel like that is not the correct way to do it, and I feel like there was way more room for destruction than for possibility, and like it just happened to work that way.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. And yeah, I mean, like, I love that you were able, like, that you entered it with, like, no experience. Because I feel like there's a lot of people who enter, like, tabletop RPGs with, like, some kind of, like, oh, like, some people have done theater, some people, like, do, like, writing
Hmm.
and stuff. And, like, all of these, like, other things that, like, get them into, like, oh, I like fantasy and role playing. And, like, oh, like, maybe I could try that. Like, the
Hmm.
fact that you were just, like, that just shows how like wonderful this hobby or industry of ours is, right? That
Yeah.
it can unlock that part of you that's like, oh, whoa, wait, I don't have to be bound by the constraints of like the invisible walls of a video game, right?
Hmm.
I can, if I can imagine it, I can try to make it happen, and it can
Yes.
be, which is super cool.
Yeah. And like I had done that with like games when I was a kid where it's like, oh, I would try and make a card, like I would play Pokemon cards, and I was like, I can't afford new cards. Well, what if I did this and like started making cards to like go with a thing, or like, oh, and then and like there was all that level of creativity of what I wanted to do, and
Mm-hmm.
finding tabletop RPGs was very much that, like, yeah, this is an outlet for you to do that.
Yeah, yeah, and the ability to go from a person who is just playing to being a person that's designing, like that line is so thin.
Oh,
um
absolutely.
there's like, to a certain degree, every player is doing a little bit of design anytime they're like, oh, what if I try this in this new way, right? Or
Hmm.
like, oh, hey, GM, like I was thinking like, oh, could I actually like have like, I want this like kind of magic item that does this, like that is like that, those are the slow steps into into becoming a designer. That it's like, that I love, because that's a part of like the collaborative nature of like the playing the game, the telling the stories together.
Yes.
And that anyone can just move fluidly between someone who is just an audience member, someone who is just a player, to someone who is running games, to someone who is designing games,
Hmm.
is what I think is really cool about tabletop games in general.
Totally agree.
Yeah. And so, specifically today, when we're talking about designing games, we're talking about monsters. Yes, those fun big beasties, baddies, and well, I mean, maybe they're pretty or whatever,
Yeah.
depending on the kind of game that you're running. The things that create obstacles for the players, that try to stop them from getting what they want, or the world from getting what it wants, right?
Hmm.
Um, I guess before we get into the specific monster that you designed, um, what are your opinions on monsters in general? Do you have favorite monsters, favorite types of monsters? Uh,
I
yeah.
I don't have a favorite type of monster because I feel like monsters are like word choices. It's like I don't have a favorite word. I have what words fit the sentence I want to make.
Okay.
And then
Okay.
that's how I feel about monster design, where it's like I want it to be a hulking creature that is immovable. I want it to be, it's like, okay, well then I'll build that. I want it to be a sly, slick thing that can like weave in and out uh of like dimensions and like appear other places. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, well, I'm gonna build that differently as an encounter. Yeah, it's just I want it to have more narrative stake. I want it to have more like be more scary or like confusing or whatever. Like all those things are, every single one of them you can approach differently and apply different bits of logic and stuff to it. So
Yeah,
yeah, no set favorite, just they're all great.
they're all great. All
Yeah.
monsters are great.
Yeah, you just gotta use them.
Yeah. My favorite, I love anything that's kind of like a spider.
Ooh, it's so
Anything
good.
that's just kind of like a spider, or things
Hmm.
that are like slowly turning into something that is spider like, or a thing that turns people into things that are kind of spider. I just really like
It's good.
spiders. I don't know why. It just
That's
kind of latched onto me.
I mean, yeah, pun intended. I don't know, but like,
Like a
yeah.
spider. It strapped itself onto me like a large spider's web.
No, spiders are such a great imagery though. Like you have, especially since spiders and arachnids in general, like there's just so much to draw from.
Yes.
Like a tiny spider can still be scary. A dinner plate spider can still be scary. A like dog-sized spider can still like the size of it can still be terrifying. Like
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't matter if you make it. It's like if you make a little tiny like it's it's a snake but it's this long. It's like
Yeah.
it's just adorable.
It's
But
just like
there's
a little
something
worm.
about of what?
It's just a little worm at that
Yeah, it's a
point.
scaled worm. Like you're like okay, whatever. Uh, but yeah, like a spider has that kind of reaction to it. Like it draws a very specific reaction from people. Sometimes it's like that's cute and I like it, but most of the time it is like a little more fearful. And there's so many elements of it that you can pull from for different ways. I feel like
It's so
spiders,
good.
yeah, if you're gonna like one, spider's a great choice.
Spiders are good. The quickest way I get to anyone is never by the size of it, but it's always how it moves. Because once a spider
Ooh.
gets big enough, there's a way that it can move around a room that is unlike the way that people do, where
Hmm.
arms can touch walls and floor at the same time. And once you start describing that, players start going, "No, I'm good." Actually,
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, it climbs to the wall, it moves from here to it's so good. Um, but we're not here to talk about spiders. We're here to talk about, I guess, spiders are monsters. Um, but yeah, so you say that you try to create monsters that fit specific like moods, tones, themes, whatever
Hmm.
you need for that kind of adventure. Is there anything or any place that you tend to pull inspiration from when it comes to like the aesthetics or like the or even like the abilities, features, or anything like that for monsters once you know what concept you're going for?
Ooh, the answer is yes, and long-winded. It
Be as long-winded as you want.
it really depends. I love running a lot of variety of games. So like I love running like fantasy games and sci-fi games. I love running superhero games and like magical girl anime games and like different things where you know you can pull from all sorts of stuff
Mm-hmm.
to make it work. And like, oh, okay, well I want it, like a dragon, sure, that will fit better here. And like So I also kind of forgot the question. Wait, what was the question again? Oh, pulling from sources.
Yeah. What is there any consistent inspiration you find yourself from? Like any specific kind of media, a specific creator, genre?
Uh, Specific, no, because there's too many things that I pull from where
You
I'm
could
like,
just
oh,
shotgun them, throw them at a
yeah,
wall.
exactly.
Yeah.
Like, heck yeah, Power Rangers. Heck yeah, like Madoka Magica. Heck yes, I don't know, weird book I saw somewhere. Like, it just that the most consistent thing I pull from is my players.
Mm.
I When they introduce a character and I can look at that character and be like, well, what is that character afraid of? What is it that that character can do? And then I can introduce a scenario with a monster where they can excel in that. What are things that they can't do? And I'm going to introduce a monster to make it that much harder for them.
Hmm.
What is it that I'm trying to get through to them in a meta context or like at a story beat or something? And how can I, make this work within a monster? So, like, them as a living, breathing, creative stew
Hmm.
is where I get the most inspiration from
Yeah.
consistently.
Do you find that you design more monsters than you usually like pull from like a pre-made like book or something, or even changing? Do you find yourself changing monsters more if you are like pulling them from like a monster, like a monster vault, let's say?
It mostly depends on time. If I'm
That's
like, oh,
fair.
I need something, I'll pull something and go for it. The majority of the time, I have too many creative things fighting in my head, and I will just make it wholesale. Like
Yeah.
I will go, what would be a cool idea? And it's like that probably exists somewhere, but that doesn't help me
You have
get
to
all
go
these
and
ideas out.
search
So I'm
for
just going to
it.
start writing them down.
Hmm.
And then if I look, but sometimes I do find like a very specific thing. Like if I'm looking through a monster book or something like that, and I just see something that just like sparks something in me that I'm like, that's a cool design, or like that's a good name, or that is a really good ability.
Hmm.
And then I'll be like, all right, how do I incorporate this? And I will usually absolutely will change it in some way
Yeah.
because I can't not do that unless I'm pressed for time. But yes, I will usually, yeah, I want to put some little bit on it that changes it.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense based on it. Sounds like I think you and I have very similar minds as far as like trying to use monsters to hone in on whatever specific story beat that you were trying to like hit on, whatever theme
Hmm.
you're trying to hit on, whatever tone and mood, and kind of using the monsters to uh kind of bolster that. And so that like all of these pieces are kind of working together, the players, their abilities, their things that they're
Hmm.
lacking, the creature they're having to face, and like how that's going to force them to like engage with the story either differently or like lean into it if it is something that's like fully kind of their bag, um
Yeah.
which is really cool. I'm interested then in what is the monster that you've made devoid of any players to have to design it for?
That was a little difficult because, like, yeah, I did not have that to like bounce off of. So I tried to think of something that I would just like to encounter that I think would make a good, you're going through the world and this thing appears.
Yeah. Okay.
Uh, so then that's kind of where it started as like a genesis of it, and then be like, okay, well, what about this? And then like, oh, it could have this ability, and like trying to think about a bunch of things like that, and
Mm-hmm.
like giving it a variety of things to do. I think is very important in monster design too,
Mm-hmm.
where it's like I don't want it to just be able to attack.
Right.
Like I need it to be able to do more so that players can engage with it in multiple ways. And for the GM running it, you're not just like, I use my big meaty fist and swing. And that's my whole turn as the GM. All right, next turn. Oh, big meaty fist. Here we go. Like
Yeah.
I want them to be having fun with it too.
Yeah. So I mean, what is the creature that you made?
So I made a creature and naming it was the hardest part. That probably took the longest. I was going back and forth with my ideas and like sending stuff out and getting some edits and being like, "Ooh, okay." And yeah, that was probably the last thing that we did. But it is called a veil worm,
Ooh.
and it is a like featureless worm-like creature that has a long horn on its head, and it only appears in the fog, and it flies. So there's no wings. It is just a long worm where its body kind of disappears into the fog, but it is flying around, and it has hover as its thing. And it always appears in groups of 3 or more.
Jesse,
Yeah.
how did you design the creature that I needed for my game right now? How did that happen?
You need me to
How did
email you all the stats you get for it?
I could find them somewhere, I'm sure.
Oh, okay,
but like,
yeah,
no,
that's true. You should have them.
yeah, no, that's so cool. Like I'm playing in a game right now where the kind of, because it was a one shot that was built to be like, maybe, hey, if we like this and we want to keep playing, it could go longer. So it's like there a bunch of people who were stopping in a town to then go to like this major port city. This is like a stopping point, and overnight while they were all there, the town gets surrounded by fog, and it's been like that for a week, and now they're starting to like go out and do stuff, and like this is like perfect because I was like, I want there to be like 3 different things that are like almost very like Zelda-esque, where it's like you have to purify these 3 different things before this like fog will lift, and there are monsters that are like protecting slash corrupting, you know, multiple of these things. And one of them, I wanted a big long thing going through through the fog, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna have to design that, but you've done that for me.
There you go.
That's
Glad
so
I could
cool.
help.
That's so cool. You're 100% right. If I were to just encounter that, it would be both intriguing and horrifying.
That's precisely what I wanted.
So how did this come about? What was what were the steps, or I guess the take us on your brain path to how the veil worm became the way that it is, if you can.
I can, okay. Pretty into the weeds, but I can get into it.
Yeah, hey, go for
So
it.
the idea I wanted to go with, and this is talked about some in the lore, but the lore keeps it a little vague. I really liked the idea of like if we were ants in an ant colony and we were walking around doing our stuff, and like this thing just came in and started tearing through our colony, and we were like, what is this? And like it was just a gardener's hand. Like all we would see are these fingers like just tearing through everything, and like moving without a sense of like, you know, if we make a noise or we like shine a light on it, I don't know wherever ants with lights, but you know, like it would not react to those things because it does not have those senses.
Right.
But it has touch, and it's like kind of something that's like feeling around for something versus like looking for it or hearing for it, and that is immune to those things. I thought that would be a very creepy thing to, you know, kind of scale up to just be like these, you know, the idea of these fingers just reaching in and just like kind of feeling around, and maybe they want to attack you. Like maybe they'll, you know, just kind of slap you out of the maybe they'll only harm you if you harm them first. Like, because it's like, you know, if you get bit, your reaction is to go back for it. Like,
right.
So like you don't know what it is, and it's this weird just thing that you can't quite comprehend.
That's so good. And I love, and like the fact that they do only show up in like groups makes like really hones in on that, like fingers ripping through the dirt that is our plane, right? And it almost makes me wonder, well, is it attached to something at the other end?
Maybe.
Who's to say? Oh, that's fascinating. I that's just really cool. That's
Thank
really
you.
cool. I love the And like one of the things that I really like about monsters is the inspiration that they give for, like, if this were just like, you know, purely in a vacuum, I just needed a monster to help me come up with some ideas for a thing. This is a creature where, like, this could be the start of an adventure, right? This could be the start of a campaign. Is not a thing you necessarily need to fight because maybe it would kill you, but like you know you're going through, you know, you're traveling from one place to another, or you know, you wake up one morning and it's a normal day in the big city, then all of a sudden a fog creeps over the city and you're like, oh whoa, what's going on outside? And then 3 giant worms just started wriggling around, and like that's a whole campaign right there. Hey, what are those worms? Where did they come from? What is that, you know? That's, and like, it's, I think you've really hit on something that is inspiring, both in the way of, you know, generating ideas for like, oh, how could I use this, and like, what's the story with that, but also something that for players is very inspiring and very, like, it's a great hook. It's a great hook, just the existence of these in general.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I absolutely wanted to have some of that. Like I feel like a thing with intrigue is just, yeah, it's like a piece of the world building.
Yeah, 100%. Were there any other ideas that you have that ended up on the cutting room floor as far as monsters go?
I was starting to like, okay, if they don't, because it's a weird concept. Like
Right.
the initial thing was like, well, pitch us a concept and then we'll, you know, if that fits. So I was like, okay, so I'd like, basically that one was the one that stuck with me the most. And I was like, I could try these other things, but I was like, y'all okay with getting real weird? And I got back, yes. And that's what I pitched. And they were like, sounds great. So honestly, no,
It
I
was the
lucked
first
out.
one.
Yeah, I lucked out on like, I pitched that one. They really liked it and went forward with it. So that's nothing from that is in the graveyard of ideas, but that's okay. There's plenty of other things in there.
You were one and done. You were like, you know what? I'm just gonna pitch out the best idea I could think of, and they were like, that's a great idea.
Yeah, and it's helpful because it's like, oh no, maybe I don't have any good ideas. Oh, that's a bummer.
That's so funny. Oh my god, that is, it's. Have you thought about how you would use them in a game?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And that was the thing. My lore section uh was about 400 words longer than what the maximum they wanted
Uh
was.
huh.
And I was like, "Oh, let me trim that for you." Um so yes, absolutely. My thought of it, and like in the lore it's more vague of
Mm-hmm.
like what these things are. I really like the idea of the kind of gardener's hands approach,
Yeah.
which does not have to be the only approach and is like mechanically and lore wise it's not the only approach. But I would have that in the same regard of like they only appear when they're looking for something specific. And so like you have a
Oh.
thing that's going to feel around, get something and like yank it out of the existence
Yeah.
and like out of the dimension. And it's like, but you don't know what that is. But it's like it always has a goal. And the idea being, if you can figure it out, would you want to stop it? Or would you be like, you know what? What we think it's going to take is not worth fighting it. Like just let it have it. Like and have that is a way I think I would really like to use it. And then the players trying to figure out what it is they want.
That is really good. I can almost like see it be like in that ladder idea of like the players maybe reckoning like maybe it's a good thing if it takes whatever it's looking for, and like
Yeah.
it's like, oh, it's looking for this really cursed artifact or whatever. It's like maybe we just let them take that, but then they have to reckon with like, well, why is it looking for that? Is it going to just put it somewhere else, or like,
Right.
or like, even if like let's say these are attached to another thing from another plane, you know, if it was looking for another monster or whatever that comes from that same plane that's causing havoc in your world, then it's like, okay, well, maybe we don't fight these. Maybe we try to lead them to whatever it
Right.
is, and then you have to figure out how do you lead something that can't see or hear you.
Right. You have no method of communication with this thing. You are essentially trying to like, communicate with someone's fingers, and you can't just like grab it
Right,
and pull it along because they don't know at the same time what you are.
right.
They can only react to it.
A third dimensional creature trying to interact with the fourth dimensional creature who has
Exactly.
no idea it even exists or like has a similar kind of sentience, if so.
Yes.
That's so good.
Dealing with higher dimensions is you're talking about theming, the things that I fall back to. That is something that I love dealing with.
Oh,
Like,
really?
yeah, I love that, and like having one place in the world I built is like in a separate sort of dimension that's like made. It is a 4D plane
Mm-hmm.
that people can travel to. So like the buildings are all like hypercubes and stuff where it's like, and like when you walk, if you walk at a slightly different angle, like you won't wind up in the same place as someone else. And
Yeah.
that it is this like separate sort of pocket dimension that you can travel to. And it's like you have to be very aware of how you're operating in that place,
Yes. Yeah.
or you don't know where you're gonna wind up. Like, yeah, it's the fourth dimension is such a fun, weird concept.
Mm-hmm.
And I am not smart enough to like wholly understand it or like do any sort of like real scientific work with it. But as someone that likes to create, stories and weird scenarios and stuff, like, oh, it's a beautiful playground to play in.
Yeah. And I think even the not fully understanding allows for, that's where the imagination fills in, right? Where it's
Hmm.
like, I don't know exactly how this would work, but how do I think it would work? What would be the interesting way for this to work?
Yeah.
Especially when like I also, not necessarily in like dimensional stuff, but in those weird, I love working in those weird spaces between like there is like the way that we accept that things work, and then there are the things that are outside of that, and like the space in between it of like, well, I think it should work this way, but oh wait, no, it's working this different way. Why is it not working the way that I think it should be working? And then like
Exactly.
the exploration of like, well, why is it the way that it is? And maybe not everything needs an answer. Sometimes the questions are more fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that because like you can do. It's also a thing you can mess with perception. Like if you've looked at like if you look at a 3D object on a 2D plane, it looked
Mm-hmm.
like it can be like folding in on itself, but
Yes.
it's not. It's just moving in a dimension you can't see. So the idea of applying that to a fourth dimensional creature that like a thing could appear and then like essentially start like turning inside out or like vanishing and reappearing or parts of it coming out of nowhere and twisting out like where it's moving perfectly normally to it, but your perception of it is, oh my gosh, what is this like gravity defying, physics defying, just meat defying
Yeah.
thing that I am seeing?
Very, very Neon Genesis Angels esque of like just weird things that look uh polygonal. Is that the right word? Yes, polygonal.
Yeah.
And like just like folding in on themselves and moving in strange ways because they just exist and work on a completely different, kind of way. I love that
Hmm.
so much. And I want more monsters like that.
Yes.
I want
Yes.
I want a book of just strange extra dimensional monsters that are just like, hey, you can use these if you want if you want the perception of your characters and your players to get just really weird, or you want to play in that space.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm on board for this book. If you need some help with it, let me know. Cause yeah, that sounds delightful.
Megan, how do I pitch this book? How do I pitch the weird extra dimensional, the monster tesseract? Our first
Yeah.
email Thomas Heard, chef.
You do have to open it, like you open it this way and then it opens this way. It's like pages on pages.
Okay, that's even better because then then you can be like, oh, this tome is actually from this other plane where all of
Yes.
these monsters are. This is just an encyclopedia of monsters from this other world that came here, and you have to interact with it in weird ways that you normally wouldn't just to be able to read it. I'd buy that book
Yeah,
easily.
absolutely. And I feel like just on a meta level, I feel like that is a thing that as like book creators doesn't get done enough. Like I'm a really big fan of the novel House of Leaves, if you've ever read
Yes,
that.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah,
And like it uses like kerning and spaces and words and font type and like how things work on page and like connecting page, like it goes more than just the text itself, but how the text is laid out and
yes.
like changes that throughout. I feel like as it's a lot more work because it's hard to make that work and still be like understandable,
Mm-hmm.
but that would be so cool, especially in a book about monsters from other dimensions.
Right. Maybe even like maybe not even just purely a monster book. Maybe I want a setting book that is this
Oh.
world separate from ours that we can travel into and you can go into, and there are people, cultures, civilizations and stuff. You have to interact with them completely differently.
Yeah.
You cannot go there and be the way that you are right now. That is it's just not going to work. They either won't understand you or that's incredibly rude, or maybe really really nice. Who knows? Oh my goodness, that's so good. Um, I'm trying to think of if there's anything more. I mean, I just want to pick your brain.
Well, you can. I mean, we're here.
We're
Like you
here.
can.
We're here. We're here.
You, as far as I know, you're running the show. So like,
Yes, you're
whatever
correct.
you say is like, here's the next part we're gonna do. I'm like, well, here it is. All right.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong. It is kind of my role here is to figure out where we go next. And now my brain is just but right now my brain is just kind of stuck on how I'm going to introduce the veil worm and my campaign, because the next session, because we've only run the one, and then the big bad of all games scheduling. Uh
Yeah.
and so the second one I was going to hint at this huge monster that's in the fog that isn't the thing that they're actively dealing with, but it's like you're gonna have to deal with this later, and I'm gonna show that it's for later because it's going to terrify you in a way that's going to, like, one of the characters is tied to like a deity of like death in the afterlife, and I was basically going to be like, hey, you get a quick ping from your oh, they aren't a cleric, they're a warlock of an entity of death. It's
Mhm.
like you get a quick ping from your patron that tells you, hey, you need to stop moving, be very quiet, and sit still really quick, and then have a huge thing worm its way through the forest and this is even perfect, right? That it doesn't recognize or acknowledge them because it cannot see or hear them. It just is a
Mhm.
feeling thing that moves through. Um, and so I can't wait. Because now I was gonna use the ogre pede, which still I think would be really good. Large
Ogre
oh
Pede.
yes. Oh do you
Oh, I
oh
I need more information on something called the Ogre Pede.
So the ogre pede is from Tome of Beasts 3, I want to say. It is Tome of Beasts 2. Thank you, Megan. It is a human centipede, but ogres, and so it is a large.
Oh.
I think it's a monstrosity or aberrant, or aberration. It is an amalgamation of ogre corpses, half corpses, because they are kind of alive because they do consistently groan and moan and howl in pain
Oh
as it
no.
moves.
Oh.
And it's just arms, legs, faces, and like things moving through a space, and like horrifying.
Yeah,
Absolutely horrifying.
absolutely.
And so I was going to do that because I think that moving through a fog, terrifying. But the veil worm just twisting, eyeless, like long, fleshy, like these creatures just moving silently through a fog, trying to grasp for something. Ugh, it's so good.
I'm really glad
Yes.
that has such a visceral reaction.
It's like it hits perfectly for me in the weird creature with little explanation that I can
Hmm.
throw at my players, and my players go, "What?" And I go, "What? What do you mean? I don't understand."
Yeah.
Oh, it's so good.
Failed worm. What else? What else did you need?
What
Is
else
that
did you need?
yeah?
I love just throwing things at player. I love never calling a thing by its name
Oh
to a
yes.
player and just describing it, because that really makes them have to hone in on the fiction of it and like
Hmm.
really lean into the story. It's even like describing, like even just describing a monster that they've already, like describing a beholder by anything other than its name, just by the way that it looks, smells, sounds, it like I think really helps players
Absolutely.
hone in. And so I'm very excited to throw the veil worm purely by description. It's
Love it.
gonna be really.
I
I'll let you know when it happens.
oh
Too.
good. I want to hear the story.
Absolutely.
I to your what you were saying, I think that using other sensory details
Mm-hmm.
is incredibly useful in describing an encounter and a monster. Where it's like, yeah, what does it smell? What is the smell? What is, is there like there's a metallic taste in the air, like even a feeling, just like an
Mm-hmm.
intrusive feeling, like you don't feel sadness, but you feel sadness hit you, like something that's
Ooh.
like
Ooh.
uh a thing that is just, like, oh no, this is out of place.
Yes.
um and yeah, you were all saying earlier the way it moves, incredibly useful, because yeah, 8 legs and scurrying is like cool, you can picture that, but like going into it a step further
Mm-hmm.
absolutely sells it as like
Mm-hmm.
how you want it to move.
Yes. And even when you start, because when you think about how it has to interact with whatever space that it's actively in,
Hmm.
also helps the players start thinking about, okay, how do I interact in this space normally, or how am I going to have to now that I know that I have to deal with this thing?
Right.
How do you deal with giant faceless worms that hover about the sky, and like how do you fight that? How do you fight
Yeah.
that? It's up there. The fighter with their long sword, like, I don't know. I think I'm just gonna have to sit this one out. So good. Oh, now I'm just imagining them like just moving through cities, like smacking down towers without even recognizing, in the same way that one's hand wouldn't recognize moving through dirt as being a huge obstruction.
Hmm.
Is like, oh, so good. So good. I'm stuck on that thought process now, and all of the different ways I want to use the veil
Good. I hope I have brought great value to the book, because
easily. Easily.
it's a cool book.
Yeah, okay. I even cooler now with the fail worm for sure. Oh my god. Well, you know what, Jesse, thank you so much for being here today, talking with me on Kobold Chats. I can't wait to talk. Hey, everybody watching. First, if you didn't know, hey, Scouting Party is back. The series where we do deep dives into our newest titles, specifically Kobold Press's Kickstarters. And the first episode for the Monster Vault 2 came out today. You can find us talking, find me talking with Megan, as well as Mike Shea, Sly Flourish, talking about the many different mechanics and tools that you'll be able to find in Monster Vault 2, including the expansions on the Doom Point system, monster bundles, which I love, and also monster templates. But that won't be the only one. We have another one coming out, not next week, but the week after. And hey, Jesse, you and I are going to be talking even more. We're going to get into the nitty gritty of the Veil Worm, because now I need to know all about it. So be on the
Good, because I
lookout.
didn't say everything specifically because I knew I'd have more to say.
There's
So
more. Oh, that's exactly what I needed. I need more. Oh my god. Well, yes. Thank you so much, Jesse.
absolutely.
Let everybody know where they can find you, your work, and everything on the internet.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for having me.
Of course.
I am On all platforms that I exist on, I'm Rexicon Jesse, which is mostly Blue Sky. And then I'm in some Discords, like the Second Wind group, which is where I work and where you can see Adventure is Nigh, which is like I said, the animated actual play show that I'm a part of, that I play a character, and I'm an animator on. Woo!
Yeah.
And that's on Second Wind group over on YouTube. And then we have just a bunch of other stuff on there. That's a lot of video game focus, and then some other, we talk about movies and stuff because we're all a bunch of nerds. So like we can't stick too hard to one topic. Like we have a lot of video game stuff, but that's like, but also movies and TV and tabletop. Like we can't not get into that too.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Second Wind Group, they also have a Blue Sky account, and we have a Discord, and of course the YouTube channel where all of our videos go up, and you know, the Patreon where a bunch of people help us out at. And then what is it? Oh, and then another thing I do on there, the RPG Help Desk, Thursdays at 4:30 Eastern.
Oh.
I just answer questions and like talk about RPG stuff. It's a delightful time, and there are cool people there. So if you want to come on sometime, it'd be really cool to have you on there.
I would love to. That sounds amazing. Yeah, absolutely.
Good. Sweet.
Well, yeah, thank you so much for being here. And everyone, I've been Kendrick at Kendo, as always. You can find me here at Kobold Press. If you're watching this, thank you so much. And you'll be able to find us. Actually, I'm not going to wait. Hold on. Wait. Oh God, my days. Yes. Okay. I will be here next week. I have to. I'm moving in 2 weeks, and so dates are just weird for me right now. But yes, we will see you next week. Oh, because I am talking with Sarah Madsen, one of our other designers for the Monster Vault 2, and we're going to be talking about a lot of the monsters that she made. So this is going to be just more monster goodness. If you haven't already told your friends, your fellow players, your loved ones about Monster Vault 2, what are you doing? Get on it, gang. Tell them. We are, like I said, where are we at right now? We are at $199,567. As I said that, it updated yes, Violetta. I'm so excited as well. We are at $199,800, meaning that we are only $200 away from hitting that $200,000 mark. And in that case, we will then be unlocking the Encounter Tracker PDF, which, as you might guess by the name, it helps you track your encounters. Sorry, my old three-legged cat is getting very vocal because she woke up. So.
Aww.
Yeah, that just tells me it's time for us to end this. So, thank you, everybody. We will see you next week. And don't forget to go out, be bold, be brave, and be valiant. And we'll see you next time.